Unlimited fam, Big Dave coming back at you. I hope everybody is doing exceptionally well. I hope you're having an amazing day. Hey, I wanted to interview this guy for a little while now, and I'm telling you, you guys are going to love him. Why? Because, well, everybody loves money, right, Andrew?
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people love money.
So look, Andrew Clark out in Minnesota, expanding wallet, all about finances, all about success, all about mindset. So those are the three things we're going to talk about. But first, Andrew, I want you to just tell everybody, like, real quick, who you are, what you do, why you're doing it, why you're
Yeah,
doing it.
hey, yeah, definitely. The why is very important. So my name is Andrew Clark. I am the founder and CEO of Expanding Wallet. And we definitely focus on money, taking control of your money. And more importantly, I would say is actually taking control of your future, right? And so there are three reasons that people don't go after their big dreams in life. They don't believe they have enough money. They don't believe they have enough time, or they simply just don't believe in themselves. Right. And so all of those had to do with belief. So we try to tackle all of those really, but we focused on money and belief, right? Because if you can gain enough money, you can hire someone to get back some time. And the belief is probably the hardest thing, right? Is to believe in yourself. And so that's what I focus heavily on as well through some of the interviews that we do at Expanding Wallet. And we show you people who have transformed their lives. And for me, my why, Dave, is that growing up, I had seen my mom work really hard. We immigrated from Jamaica, and that's a third world country. And when she came here, there's a lot of opportunities. And so she worked really hard to not only provide for our internal family, but then we had family members back home who couldn't provide for themselves. So there were times when she would work, actually for years, she would work over 100 hours a week, right? And she was taking care of at least 8 people, right? My 2 grandparents, a sister and a brother, right? They couldn't support themselves, and she was taking care of all of those people, right? But the thing is that has a toll on your body, right? Mentally too. I could see where my mom's, she was very impatient, right? She grew to be very impatient because she would get such little sleep. And, that's not healthy for you. And so at 15, I started to look for better ways to make money because all my mom really knew was to work and save, right? Work and save. So she would save up money and then send it away, or would just keep it in the bank account, right? There was really no investing, right? The money was never working for her. So so I would think, what would happen, right? If my mom got sick, couldn't go to work, right? What would happen if she got really sick and it would last a long period of time? And so that was what kind of gave me the purpose to start educating myself on money, because we're not taught this stuff in school. I mean, what we're taught is so little of what's really going to transform your life, in my opinion. And so around 15, I started reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And it's so funny because as I was reading that book, I said, Mom, you're like the poor dad in this book. My mom was like, what are you talking about? You
said that,
and I said, Mom, yeah, I'm like, Mom, you're like the poor dad in this, right? Because my mom was huge on education, right? So yeah. Before she came to America, she was a teacher for 13 years. If you have read that book, the rich dad was a principal, or the poor dad was a principal, right? And then my mom, before she left Jamaica, was actually going to go back to school to be an attorney, right? So she had started taking some prep classes. She comes to America, literally starts over in her 30s, works for $4 an hour, actually, right? Starts over $4 an hour, goes back to school to become a nurse, right? So, and pays for school and everything, right? Pays that off. And so to her, it was education was the answer, right? So just like in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but, growing up, we didn't have fancy shoes. Like I never had name brand shoes bought from my mom. We go to Payless, right? And so my mom would say, if I were to ask for something like that, we can't afford it. And I understood why, right? We had people to feed back in Jamaica, right? So if she were to buy me those shoes, maybe somebody wasn't going to be able to eat. And so it was that we can't afford it mentality, right? And that was the poor dad mentality. And then Robert Kiyosaki had his rich dad, who was his friend's dad. It wasn't actually his biological dad, who was the rich dad. And he said, I noticed a different mentality when it came to money or buying things. if you wanted something, he would say, how can you get it? How can you afford it? Right? Instead of we can't get it, we can't afford it. And so it was a different mentality. And so like reading that book really like opened my eyes up. And Robert Kiyosaki focuses heavily on real estate. And so at 15, I'm like telling my mom, like, wow, real estate seems really interesting. Like this seems like something you should do. And then ironically enough, her brother, she had 7 siblings, so a big family. They're raised on a farm. And so she comes from a huge family. So one of her other brothers, extremely successful, my uncle, in real estate down in Jamaica. And he's like, yeah, you should get into real estate too in America. And so around that time, then my mom like becomes a real estate agent, and I'm learning, right, from her, right? Because I'm only 15.
Yeah.
And so I'm starting to understand real estate as she's an agent. And then when I turn 18, I end up getting my license as an agent as well. And so somewhere around that time,
when you were 18 years old, you got your license.
Yeah, because she was still working. She never quit her job as a nurse. She always worked as a nurse, and she just did real estate part-time. And so before I went to college, the plan was I would actually get my license and kind of help her out as I'm going to college, right? Mm-hmm. And so it didn't work out great because that was 2007 when I got my license. And so probably like the worst time in history to get your license, right? As an agent. But, what ended up happening, just kind of like to shorten it up a little bit, but basically, after reading that book and after getting into real estate, like the conversations with my mom changed a lot. The conversations used to be, hey, I got an extra shift, I'm going to get paid time and a half at work. Now it's, how do I get my money to work for me, right? Like, hey, I found this good real estate deal or property, that's kind of the shift. And a lot of that happened. And I don't regret having the real estate license, even though like financially it wasn't like the best move, because what ended up happening was, and here's a distinction too for a lot of people, real estate agents are not trained to be investors. Okay. So even though I had my real estate license at the time, I wasn't yet trained as an investor in real estate. And so we ended up taking a lot of real estate investment classes. It didn't require you to be an agent, but they cost a lot of money at that time anyways. So at that time, my mom was like, hey, I'm going to pay, I don't remember how much it was. It was in the thousand, maybe like $5,000, right? To go to these training classes. And as part of that, you could bring a guest. So I'm her son and I got to go in to these classes, right? And so that's one thing that, is very different, I think, with Expanding Wallet. Like that's why on the homepage, it says like, transform your mind to expand your wallet, because like, I want you to change your thinking, right? Like the thinking was for my mom was like, okay, I don't want to be working so hard anymore, but I don't know how to exactly all the ins and outs of real estate investing. So I'm going to pay this money in order to learn so then I can get there, right? So you have to invest in yourself, like always. And so going through those like investment courses, I went through a lot with her during the time. And again, I'm in college too, right? I'm like going to college and I'm taking I'm taking on a biomedical engineering degree, right? That was the hardest course at my university at the U of M at the time. And I remember the professor, my faculty advisor, meeting him for the first time. And we're sitting down and he's like, look, Andrew, this course is extremely hard. He said, look, it has a 54% dropout rate. That's what made it the hardest course. And so he's like, you have to understand what it takes to be successful. And right now you don't know what it's going to take. So you got to work your butt off in the beginning to figure out what does it take to get an A, right? What does it take to get to that level? And so the thing that I focus heavily on is purpose, right? Because I had such a strong purpose at the time because I saw what it was like with the mentality that my mom was raised with, right? Where you work hard and save money. There was no like investment, right? And then school wasn't teaching me that. So I had to work extra hard to get that extra knowledge. So I'm doing like trying to do my best as a real estate agent, going to these workshops to learn how to invest on top of still trying to do well in school. So, I mean, that was like the level that I was at. And I was actually going at that time, I was actually going to be a doctor. So I actually had pre-med classes on top of the engineering classes. later I realized that wasn't for me after kind of shadowing my doctor. And I was just like, this is definitely not fulfilling for me.
I don't like blood.
Dave, you won't even believe what it was. It wasn't blood.
What?
It wasn't even blood.
What was
It was
it?
not blood. So before that, I had volunteered in an emergency room. Blood did not bother me.
Okay.
What it was, I didn't want the random hours. First off, I didn't want the random hours. So I was like, okay, I don't want to be like a surgeon. I don't want to be a lot of those doctors where it's kind of spontaneous. I thought, okay, I'll be a family practice doctor, right? And I had been going to my family doctor for years. So I just went through those pre-med courses, pretty much finished them. And then I was like, well, let me shadow my doctor. Like, you need to do some shadowing work in order to apply for medical school. So I shadowed my doctor for like 2 days. And I was shocked because I never realized how much of that work just involved just telling people, like, you know, you need to quit smoking, you need to lose weight, you need to stop drinking, right? And he's like, I've been telling you this for years. And I was just like sitting there like, like, this is the most obvious stuff in the world. And I'm not going to put myself through that much school, that much debt to come out and do this every single day. And like, I mean, that's just wasn't fulfilling for me. Right. And that wasn't something I felt like super passionate about. And, you know, some people I give them credit, you know, for doing that, but that just wasn't for me. And that was the realization I came to that day. And I think about this Tibetan proverb. It says, no matter how far in the wrong direction you go, always turn back. Right. And I was deep.
I love that.
Right. I was deep.
I've never heard that. Yeah.
Now, man, I was deep. And actually, of my grades, those pre-med classes, I pretty much almost aced all of them. Like, it was like A's, maybe an A minus. So like, that was like my best, was those science classes. But I look at the end point, right? Like, what am I running towards, right? Why would I go there if I know what I'm going to end up doing? So that was like a huge turning point for me.
Makes sense. So look, if you're going to take what you just said, right, about your early life, right, and share 3 points with someone, right, someone that's 18, 19, 20 years old, take 3 points and go, hey, look, ... Think about that a little bit. What would you say?
What I would say to them, focus on these 3 things, because I've thought about that a lot too. And I would say, first off, you want to party less. You definitely want to party less. And then you want to focus on, 1, increasing your income, okay? And then paying off debt. And then the third is you want to really try to figure out yourself. You want to get to know yourself. And then try to put yourself in positions, right, where you can get some hands-on experience, right? Like that experience with the doctor. Like, I wish I had done that at 18, right? Imagine if I had done that at 18, how different things would have done. I actually would have taken a lot of pressure off myself. I wouldn't take any pre-med classes, right? Yep. And so that's one of the things I would say is like I tell this to people, like, I don't really like our system, right? I don't like that you go from high school and it's expected you kind of jump right into college, right? Like, I would have rather have taken a year, right, to just try stuff, like whether it's interning for a couple months here and then interning somewhere else, or maybe it's just a lot of shadowing, or just networking with people and sitting down and just saying, hey, you know, how can I get in and do something, right? And work for free. Like, I don't even care, like, work for free. That's 1 year of your life, right? But that year might change everything going forward. So that would be my advice, like those 3 things, focus on those. And I say money, I talk about the increase in income and then paying off debt, because you might end up finding when you get to that third item, right, and you figure out, like, this is what I really want to do, right? To some extent, it's probably going to cost you some money, right? And so if you're tackling those other 2, and it's going to take time to find that, right? It's going to take time to find out what it is you really want to do. But as you tackle those money things and you have more money now you can put it towards that. Like, one thing I don't really focus on a lot, and maybe not even at all, actually, on Expanding Wallet, like, I really don't care about the material stuff. Like, I don't care about you having a fancy car right now. Like, I want you to go after that purpose, right? I want you to go after that, because at 24, I bought an investment property because I was trying to increase my income so that eventually, right, like, I would have that income needed to go after something more fulfilling for me, right?
Okay.
And then go get that first, right? Get that thing, and then go after all those other things, right? Like, because you can buy, right? Like I have a Toyota, right? I can have a Toyota, right? It's very affordable for me, or I could have a Mercedes Benz. I could actually still afford it, but to some extent, there's a cap on how much money I have, right? And
Mm.
so one of the things I would say, Dave, is like that breaks my heart when I hear this. I'll tell a friend, right? Even with the Les Brown program, I tell a friend like, hey, I know you love to do motivational speeches. I'm in Les Brown's program. No way. That's awesome. How much is it? I tell him the price. Dude, I just bought this phone and this car. I can't afford that, right? But imagine if you had been putting money aside for years for some opportunity like that to come,
Yeah.
right? The money's already there. Let's take the
Yeah.
money off the table now. Now you're just talking about time, right? And so that's what it is for me. And I'll share one more thing too, because like my life has been very unique, right? Because after I decided I wasn't going to be a doctor, I was actually kind of lost. I was a little bit lost as far as what I was going to do. I happened to get into a mentorship program at the U where they connected you with another engineer who was usually retired, actually.
Mm.
And the guy that I got hooked up with had been working for 3M, and he had actually opened up an entire division at 3M in France. And so I meet with him. He's asking me questions on what I like and things like that. And we met on the campus, and he looks at me and he's like, you're very different than a lot of the kids I've spoken to, a lot of the students. Again, with kind of like my real estate experience, telling him, kind of the things I like. And so he's like, would you be okay with meeting at my house on Saturday and meeting my wife? I think she can actually help me more than I can. And
Mm.
so I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds great, right? Like, I'm just like, all right. So go over to his house. We meet for tea. We have some tea or whatever. I meet his wife. I find out that his wife, and get what kind of job she has. This is pretty amazing. Her job that she created, right? Her business, it was a consulting business. And so she would work with retired ambassadors, right? Guys and ladies that used to travel around the world as ambassadors, and now they're retiring and they have no clue what they want to do. And so she helped them find jobs or figure out what kind of career they want, like whatever they want to do for the rest of their life. And so
Really?
that was her job. And so this is where I got really fortunate, right? And so, she kind of takes me through that process and she's like, okay, what things do you like? I was like, I love to travel. I like working with smart people. I like figuring out complex problems, right? Like with the team usually. And I still like working by myself. So I'm like giving her these lists, right? And so she's like, okay, she's just like right away is like, oh, okay, that's easy. You need to be a consultant. And you need to be an IT, like you need to be an IT consultant.
Mm.
I was like, oh, okay. Right. And like, just like that, she just whips it off. And I'm like, how do I go about that? And she connected with me with someone who was already a consultant, owned a company, but he was like a one person army and he wanted to keep it that way. But he kind of like guided me in the right direction and said like, okay, apply here, apply there. And then he said, look, I'm going to tell you something too. You're probably not going to get a job as a consultant fresh out of school. He's like, it's going to be really hard for you to get a job fresh out of school as a consultant. He's like, usually you have to work in an industry, you have to work for a company for a couple of years, and then you can go, try to apply and get in as a consultant. And so I just happened to get, I would say, somewhat lucky, but I had ended up finding a post from a small company. I just remember reading it and I had no clue what they did. First off, the type of industry that they're in, really, and the systems that they used, manufacturing system. It's called manufacturing execution system. No clue what that was. All I remember reading was two things. You get to travel and we teach you everything on the job. And they needed someone with an engineering degree, which I had. So I was like, okay, perfect. And I interviewed with them, small company, really small company at that time, like maybe 9 or 10 employees, maybe even 10, including myself when I eventually got hired. But I interviewed with them and loved everybody there. And I was like, this is where I want to be. And so that's how I ended up getting in with that company. And I'm still there. And just because of the amount of traveling, right? So I've been on, by the time I was 30, I had already been on over 300 flights. Like that's how much I was traveling. And so that allowed me to see more of the world, meet people on those flights. And then, when it comes to kind of the material things, and here's where I think the difference is for me is that, you know, I got to experience this lifestyle of living in hotels, renting nice cars, right? And so I got to experience like some of that. And I think like when you don't experience it, like that's what you want, right? Like that's what you want. And then you get it and you're like, you know, this stuff isn't all that fulfilling. And so that's kind of where I think like for me, it's like I'm not like that's not what I'm after, right? I'm after something bigger for you, right? So I want you to go after that big dream, right? The thing that you envision daily, right? But everybody around you might tell you you can't get it, right? That's what I want for you.
Okay. Let me go back a little bit to the question that I asked you, because you said getting out of debt, right? And I would actually say don't get in debt. If you're in your 20s, you have no business being in debt unless it's college debt and you're in the United States or a country that doesn't pay for your college. There's many countries that you get a degree for free. Many.
Not in the US, right?
Not one.
No,
And,
definitely not.
I'll share something with you. You know, so I work with parents and teens. And as a parent of a 26-year-old, my daughter came to me after being in college for 2 years to be a radiologist. And she comes to me and she says, Dad, I'm not doing well in this class, and I don't like it at all. And I have several more of these types of classes for this degree, and I'm not sure what to do. Now, here, Dad is paying for college. And I say, well, sweetheart, you gotta study a little harder, maybe get a tutor, you know, or something. And then she says, I'm not sure that I want to do this, you know. And I go, and so as a parent, I have two choices. I can say, well, babe, you got to push through and commit, right? Or I can say, oh, did you find something a little more intrinsically motivated to you, right? Something a little like deeper for you? And she says, I've been working with kids with autism for years. And she was working with kids, and she says, I just love it. Like, I'd like to get a psychology degree and do that, and get a PhD actually in psychology and just work with kids with special needs. Now, she's 26 now and loves her job. She gets paid very well. And she doesn't work. She doesn't work. Every time I talk to her, she's like, oh yeah, I got another client. Oh yeah, I'm doing this. And she loves it. So I would say if you cannot get yourself in debt, don't. But certainly before you go spending money on something, do the third thing that you had mentioned. And that was a good point, is try stuff. And I tell parents that I work with and teens, try when you're 16, 17, 18 years old. Before you start making lifelong decisions, try things, go do things, try art, pottery, archery, football, whatever. Just try stuff. Just try, because we all think that, and you've heard this, especially in the Les Brown program and the people in that circle, what's your passion? What's your purpose, right? What's your purpose? I don't believe in a purpose. I don't believe that any of us have a purpose. We're not here for a thing. I think that's BS. We make our purpose, right? We do something and we go, I like that. And we do it again and we go, I love that. And it's not one thing. It's not just speaking on stage. It's not just counseling people for money. It's not just playing football. And it's not just one thing at a time. You can have a purpose times 10, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And so that's why I tell people to try, do before you start making vital mistakes and starting to really need to pivot. Because now I counseled somebody just not too long ago, and she quit her job. She has 2 master's degrees, quit her job, moved from New York to a different country because she wanted to be a life coach. Great. How much did you save up? About 6 months of salary. Did you hire a business coach or anything? No. Who told you it was going to take 6 months to build your business? Well, I just thought, no, stop thinking, please. Because thinking can get you into trouble. Thinking got you broke right now, crying in the corner, talking, and I hope she doesn't see this and is offended, but it's just the truth. And you know, broke can get you crying, sitting in a corner, wondering why you made such a bad decision. Had she hired someone, had she consulted someone, had she said, you know what, expanding your wallet, let me go talk to Andrew real quick, because Andrew, here's $500. Guess how much that's going to save you in the long run? Think about that. You know, hire me as a coach. Guess how much that's going to save you in the long run? Because both of us would have said the same thing, right?
Yeah. A lot of people don't think that way, Dave. A lot of people don't think that way. Even with like you want to get some traction, right? You want to get some traction before you jump in and leave what you know is working, right? Your job is working and you may or may not like it, right? You may or may not like it, but it's putting money in your pocket, right? It's putting money in your pocket. And so you got to see some type of traction in your business. And here's the thing, like, man, you hit the nail on the head. Who told you it was going to take 6 months, right? Who told you it's going to take 6 months? You've never done it before. And I say this all the time. Yeah. If I've never done something before, I can tell you it might take me an hour, but it might take me 3. I have no clue. I've never done it before. I've never stepped foot in this thing. So don't just run away from that income that's working, right? You got to it's going to be hard, right? You're going to have to work to either save up a ton of money for years, who knows, right? Years, or you keep that job and you go slow, right? Every day you go, you build this thing, you test something, you find out what's working, and then you go and now you might, and still you're saving up money, and now you can maximize what's working, right? Yeah. Make that income and now build the rest of your business. But yeah, Dave, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, those are strategic moves. I think a lot of us, look, the truth is so many people make vital mistakes in their early 20s with lifelong decisions, right? And then they feel pigeonholed into something. And so when they go, I'm done, I'm fed up, they make dramatic exits, right? I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have said, like, I'm quitting my job. Wait a minute. Like, are you wrapping yourself in your job, or are you just going to work, mopping some floors, and then leaving? Do a freaking amazing job at mopping floors, but don't bring the floors home with you, right? That way you have some mental capacity to go figure out what the hell you want to do in life. If it's not mopping floors, but then we look down at people that are working at Starbucks. Oh, well, they're just baristas, right? They're just, well, maybe that's what they want to do, right? What's wrong with them? They're so much happier than the doctor that's suffering through not wanting to be there, right?
Right. And Dave, I mean, even if they're at a Starbucks or for me, like, dude, my first job was Taco Bell, right? Everybody needs to start somewhere, right? And I mean, I congratulate anybody who's working, right? I mean, if you're out there busting your butt, whatever you're doing, right? You're literally making an income for yourself, and you might have a bigger dream that job is going to help fund. So, I have no problem with wherever anyone works, right? But ultimately, it's to your point. You have some purpose, purposes. I agree with that. There's definitely multiple purposes, right? And so it's like, I feel like it's so easy to just kind of go with, this is working for me. This is comfortable, right? This is what I know, and I'm just going to stick with it, right? But deep down, you're not happy, right? You're not happy, and I think it's understanding your gifts, right? Understanding what you like, but also there's something inside of you, like something really special that really makes you unique, and so you got to find that. And when you find it, then you got to work and go at it. Like, I mean, it's hard work, right? Every single day, right? I'm still working full time. I'm doing the business, right? that takes a lot of focus. And I think we actually talked about that before we got on here, but you got to have that focus and wake up every day with intentionality, because life is going to be hard no matter what. Like, life is going to be hard. You're going to wake up every day with a plan, and maybe you have 10 things on your list and you get one done, right? Go to bed and you got to wake up with that same mentality, that same hunger to, I'm going to do it all over again. And maybe you do something and then you got to redo it all. Dude, like that's what happened with Expanding Wallet with the website. I paid people to build the website. Before we go live with the website, I even extended another week, and they're like, well, we've done most of the technical stuff. Here you go. The whole website, I redid all the wording on the website. It said like I was a financial planner. I'm not a financial planner. I'm just a person that has a lot of experience with finances, but I'm not a financial planner. And, a lot of this stuff was because this is what's going to get attention from Google, right? This is what's going to help you come up on a search, right? And so I literally revised the entire website, all of the wording, even found some functional issues. I had no clue about that stuff, right? And so nobody sees that work that I put in, right? The nights where I would literally stay up till 4 a.m, wake up at 6 to go to work, right? The first week before that launch, there were like 3 nights like that, right? So I think I slept 10 hours that week, right? So that's what I'm talking about. You got to have that strong drive, right? Whatever it is, right? That's why I say it's got to be something that's really going to fulfill you, because sometimes that's the level of work it takes.
That's awesome, man. I agree 1,000%, man. Hey, so you kind of talked about Expanding Wallet. Like, why did you even like invent the business? Why did you want to do this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me see how far back I want to go. I'll just tell you, okay, so like years ago, I was going to start this business, right? Years ago, I was going to start the business. And the reason for it, though, was I realized something, even when I was back to when I was a real estate agent, right? So back when I was a real estate agent, we know there was a lot of fraudulent loans going on. A lot of people were being taken advantage of, right? I had seen some of my friends lose their properties because they were getting into loans they didn't fully understand, right? Families that bought houses that were enormous, right? A lot of people want the American dream, want to buy a nice big house. That can sometimes be your worst financial decision ever, right? And so if you don't fully understand that, you're making those moves. So I had to see them lose a lot of their houses. And I remember as an agent once that there was this couple, right? They had, it was through a mutual, someone knew me, told them about me and my mom as real estate agents. And, I kind of called them up. So basically I did all the legwork, right? I pull up some numbers for the area and where they want to move to. And so one of the things I had printed off was a budget sheet. So I bring this budget sheet with me, and it was like in the evening, and we were the last people they were going to interview. They had interviewed 2 other real estate agents, right? And my mom comes with me, and I'm doing the whole presentation, right? And I'm talking with them and finding out, okay, why they want to move. They want to go to a better neighborhood for their kids. That's great. They want to move to actually one of the most expensive cities in Minnesota, right? They're from a very modest type of city to now moving to one of the most expensive, and they have really good schools there. So I don't blame them for that. I mean, that's a good reason. But only one of them was working. The other one was in school for his master's in IT, right? In software engineering, I think it was. So, I'm like, okay, that sounds risky financially, right? So I'm like, okay, well, here, I printed off this budget sheet. I didn't know if I would need it, but, do you have a budget? Have you thought about, what's going to happen when you sell this house? And I tell them, I said, you do know the market is going down right now, right? The market is trending downward. So more than likely, especially since you haven't lived here that long, you're probably going to take a loss on this property. And they were shocked when I said that to them. And look, I was the last agent there, right? So I'm thinking like they had already known this, right? They're like, the other agents didn't tell us that, right? And this is only the beginning of the crash, right? We were only starting at the beginning of the crash. It got way worse than that. And so I'm like, okay, well, look at this budget sheet. Like, okay, go ahead and like figure out kind of your money situation. You can call me back. Like, I'm thinking we're going to leave now, right? They just start doing the numbers right in front of me, right? And then
don't leave.
Yeah, exactly. And they're kind of like, okay, so if we lose money on this property, or even if we break even, well, here's where we're going to be at, right? And then they look at me and they're like, dang, this doesn't look good. And I'm like, I'm just gonna say, like, if I was in your situation, he's got 2 more years to finish his master's. He's gonna come out of here making $50,000 to $70,000 a year. Like, personally, I would wait, right? I would wait until there's more income coming in. And they're like, man, nobody told us that, right? Nobody said anything to us. And so that was kind of the realization at that point of how many people were trying to go after this dream, right, without fully understanding the financial consequences. And so what ended up happening was they did wait, right? They did wait. And then they did call me a few years later and was like, hey, we're ready. We're financially like ready. We've got our budget. We're good to go, right? By that time, though, I wasn't a real estate agent. So I just referred them to someone else. I didn't stay in the business too long. It was a few years, like 2.5 years, because financially it just wasn't worth it that time, working part-time with how few people were actually buying then, and transactions going on. But at the same time, I mean, that was probably the eye-opening lesson. And then the thing that's crazy about it all is I've actually seen statistics that show that we've actually been trending in the opposite direction financially, like it's been getting worse, right? And this is before COVID. In 2019, there's a survey that was done that showed like most Americans, I think or no, not most, but it was like 48%, almost half, had $1,000 or less in their savings account. And then many of them were living paycheck to paycheck. And now I saw a new statistic, right? Because of COVID now, we're up to 58% living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And so the craziest thing of this all, right? All the financial stuff I had done, buying the property at 24, paying off debt at 26, right? Paying off bad debt at 26. I look at everything I've done, Dave, and I look at the technology and what's available now. And I'm like, man, I could have done this I could do that all faster. All of that I could do faster now, right? But yet we're getting worse. And so that's why I started Expanding Wallet, really to show people like what's possible, like change your thinking, right? Like that's really what it's about. And in everything in life, when it comes to success, like all the articles on finance that I've written, the number one thing, Dave, that I put out there that's for free is actually the 5 keys to success guide. And that came from the speech I did with you for the summit, the parenting and mentoring summit. Like it was based off of that speech. And it was like, after talking to a friend about my speech, he was like, man, I wish you had more time to go deeper. And I was like, I do too. And so I put together that 5 keys to success to really talk about, those are everything in my life: purpose, focus, learn, believe, and grow. Like those 5 things, if you can really develop those skills and like kind of master them or have a system, right? You can really transform your life in any area, right? Like with school, being young, behind in school, right? When it came to reading, right? To then going on and getting the hardest degree at the U of M, right? A school with over 50,000 students, right? And then if you look at family, right? We didn't know about investing money, right? But yet I transformed the financial path of our family, right? We could have just been sitting there saving money, losing money, sitting in a bank account, all those things. And then now I'm doing it again, right? With Expanding Wallet, right? I hated public speaking, Dave. Not even hated it. I feared it. I jumped out of a plane before I did any public speaking, right? I skydived before I ever spoke in front of anybody. And so that's what I'm talking about, Dave. Like, no matter what you want to do in life, right? When I said I was going to start Expanding Wallet, we look at social media. What is trending right now? Videos. Like, that's where you need to be. You need to be in front of a camera doing videos or speaking publicly. And so that was a key aspect of the business I needed, right? So I put myself not only with Les Brown, one of the greatest public speakers in the world, but I also work with Deirdre Van Nest. She was actually my first public speaking coach, a friend of mine that I happened to meet, right? And so she's also a world-class speaker, and she's got a book. I don't have it right here with me. I was going to show it to you, but she's in a book. She's got a chapter in a book with other world-class speakers. And then who forwarded the book? Les Brown. So if you look, right, that's how you got to position yourself, right? If you want to win in life. And that's what I talk about in that guide. And that's why I say, like, all that financial stuff is great, but you get that guide combined with that financial stuff. Now you're going to really be unstoppable in your pursuits, right? You got to have that laser focus. And so that's what I talk about in that guide.
That's awesome, dude. And so I'm sure you charge what, $150,000 for the guide? How much is it?
For the guide, right? The guide is free, right? I know. I mean, it's crazy. I'm just giving away too much value.
Free. Where did they go to get it?
You just go to expandingwallet.com/success, right? And that guide is on transformation, right? That's how you become successful. You develop the ability to transform. Forget about your past performance, forget about where you're at right now. Okay. Forget about what people say about you, what they think about you. Okay. You have the ability to transform yourself. That's what that guide is about.
And 5 parts to the guide, right?
Yep. Purpose. It just dives into how do you incorporate those into your life, right? Daily. Like, what do you do to incorporate purpose, focus, and then the last 3, look at my shirt, right? Learn, believe, and grow, right? Those 3, they're on my website too. Those 3 are probably the most powerful if you can combine them, right? Because I always say, learn all that you can, believe in yourself, and then take actions that allow you to grow. And so there is action, but it has to be actions that allow you to grow, right? So that's the key.
Okay, so everybody's going to go there. They're going to download the free guide and they're going to learn these things. And what is it going to do for them?
Well, first off, it's going to do all of those, like those 3 main things I had talked about, right? If you go back to just thinking about belief, right? If nobody believes in you, Dave, right, you have to start believing in yourself, right? And that's where a lot of this stems from. And then, I have a section just on belief, but when you look at what I've done, right, like when you start, I'm trying to look at this the other direction, but when you start with learning, right, learning is going to kind of open up your vision, right? And I can sit there and I can read all the real estate books I want to read, right? And eventually, I'll start to develop a plan for myself. So then I'll start believing I can do it. And then the biggest thing again is I've got to take some type of action that's going to further my growth, right? Because there's learned knowledge from a book, and then there's learned knowledge from taking action. And so what the guide really is, it's a system for you, right? It's a system, right? So I talk about, how do I incorporate purpose in my life, right? Like I'm literally, people read their goals, right? I don't just read my goals, Dave. I read what is the purpose? Like, what am I ultimately what is my ultimate outcome? And then I read my goals, right? Because without purpose, Dave, you are not going to achieve goals, man. I could tell you some stories about goals I had. Like for one, I was trying to get better shape, right? I was trying to get in better shape. I was already playing soccer, but I got asked last minute to be in a wedding, right? To be part of a wedding. One of the grooms couldn't make it. And so I'm looking, Dave, at the other guys who are going to be in this wedding, right? These guys are paid, Dave, right? You were in the military, right? One of those guys was in the military. They're paid to stay in shape, right? Another one was on the SWAT team, right? And I'm like, so I got to be in a wedding next to these guys? Next to these guys? What?
So you're saying everybody looked like Dave, and then
right, exactly.
Like, no, man. Exactly. I appreciate the offer. No, man. No, what you did is you went and got in shape. That's what I'm hearing.
Bro, I didn't just work out harder. Okay. I was already working out, right? And I had a goal to get in better shape, eat right. I think actually the biggest thing was I wanted to eat better, but I really had only made slight adjustments there. And I didn't really care about that goal, right? Because there's really no purpose tied to it. Once I had that purpose of, your boy didn't want to be up there with these guys being the worst shaped one, right? Oh, you play soccer, you don't look like it compared to those guys, right? So what ended up happening, Dave, I went vegan for like a month and a half. I mean, bro, I got a 6-pack back. The 6-pack that I had been searching for years, that thing came back, Dave. So I did about, I think it was maybe like 2 months, right? So what I did in 2 months, I didn't do for 6 months, right? And so that's why I talk about, you got to have that strong why. Like, you got to know your why. Yeah. What is that driving force? Because that's what's going to propel you forward, right? When I had those late nights with the website, right? That's what propelled me forward. I'm focusing on my why. I'm focusing on that. And that's what you need, because like I said, I mean, when you start anything new, it's going to be hard. It's going to kick your butt, and you're going to get up and you're going to fall again and fall over and over and over, right? Until you start to develop some system, right? You start to see, okay, that works. Okay, cool. Now I move on to the next thing. So that's why I just say, first thing in the guide is purpose.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is it's going to help you, right? The guide is going to help a person achieve and learn how to like stick to it and achieve what they want. And it doesn't matter if it's little or big. It doesn't matter if it's intrinsic or extrinsic, right? So intrinsically, you weren't driven to get in better shape. It had nothing to do with your health or anything else.
Right.
It was 100% extrinsic. You didn't want to look like crap in front of a lot of people. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. In the matter of fact, the goal setting module is this month in my programs for
Fantastic.
for teens and stuff. And I talk about, since we're talking a little bit about goals, I talk about chunking, right? So you take a big goal, you divide it up into 2, 3, 4 sections, and all of these are milestones, right? And so if you need to lose 50 pounds, well, if you go, okay, I'm 50 pounds overweight and I need to lose 50 pounds. How do I lose 50 pounds? That may be a little daunting to somebody, right? But if you go, okay, I think I could lose 10 pounds this month. I think that's tangible and I could do that. And it's not overwhelming to me. And then you go, okay, so if I could lose 10 pounds a month, can I lose 10 pounds every month for the next 5 months? Yeah, that's chunking. And we don't know, a lot of us don't know that when you do that, you actually give yourself a dopamine hit, so a pleasure hit every time you achieve it, every time you hit that. And then if you do it under 30 days, you do it in 3 weeks, oh my gosh, I feel good. And it actually intrinsically motivates you, right? Even if it's an extrinsic reason, intrinsically motivates you to work harder because you get that dopamine hit. It's just like messing with your phone. You get a beep, beep, beep. Oh, look, I got 100 likes. Oh, I got 200 likes. Guess what? The more likes you get, right, the more you go into your phone. So,
Right.
Great guide, great point, great reason that you started the business. Any parting words, man? Anything that you could leave people with?
Well, first off, I will say that we do have financially empowering articles. I do hold virtual workshops, and I actually have one next Wednesday, July 21st at 8 p.m. Central Time, where we're going to talk about the power of credit, right? If you've ever heard cash is king, but credit is power, like you're going to find out why credit is power in there. And part of how I paid off my bad debt in 2 years, actually, after purchasing the property, was because I understood the power of credit, right? For most people, for a lot of people, right, credit puts them in debt, right? But I'm going to show them how they can be empowered by it. And I never said this, but that's why I call it, Expanding Wallet, kind of the slogan is home for empowerment, right? So I want people to take control of their money in their future. And then the other thing that I was just going to say was that we do is that I've recently started releasing interviews on the Expanding Wallet YouTube channel where I interview people who have transformed their lives. And many of them are trying to help others transform their lives, like Dave, right? So we'll definitely do an interview. But that's kind of the purpose is, sometimes it's really difficult when you see everybody else around you just like you, right? It's difficult to say, I can go and do that, right? One of the things that I didn't talk about this, but when I was 15, I studied successful people. That was what I did. I didn't even like history class, but I loved reading autobiographies, right? I read autobiographies by Gandhi, W.E.B. Du Bois, probably the largest book I've ever read, but it got me into their mind, right? What they were thinking, what they're experiencing at that time, right? And so that's why I do those interviews, because that's going to get you into the mindset of someone who has been successful or has been in your place, right? And one thing that I'll tell you that I realized, Dave, from studying successful people, and not just financially successful, right? Those were like world leaders, is that most leaders are not elected, Dave. They just had the courage to take a stand for a great cause. And so that's ultimately like where, people have to realize that, that's in you, right? You may not think it yet, but once you start to, look at those people and you understand them, like then you can start to develop that belief in yourself. And that's what you need when it comes to changing your family, right? I have an article on 9 ways to create generational wealth in your family. And the article just starts off by like listing, okay, these are some of the wealthiest families in the world, right? Like Rockefellers, you got the Waltons who started Walmart, right? But what you realize, Dave, is it usually started with one person in that family, right? One person in that family. So for me, maybe it was me, you could say, maybe my uncle helped too, right? But that's what I'm saying is, right, just one person to take a different stand. It's where you use your time. And so the parting word that I would say, so yeah, that's what Expanding Wallet has: financially empowering articles, live events, workshops, and then a lot of stuff on YouTube. It's going to be more than interviews. I've got some educational stuff too that I'll put out there. But my parting words, Dave, is really just to understand, like, you have something special in you, but you got to work at it, right? You got to work at it to get it out. You got to work at it to find it. You got to work at it to find who you are, right? But don't give up on yourself. That's my parting words.
Don't give up on yourself. Yeah. Faith without action equals nothing.
I love that.
The end. The end. Unfortunately, and you know, so many people are suppressed by their surroundings, by their mindset, by their family, by their husband, by their wife, by their debt, by everything around them. And it takes effort to get outside of that hole. And I think that that's exactly what you're trying to offer with the guide, with your services, is a shovel to get out of a hole. And no matter how deep or shallow that hole is for you, you got the shovel. Now we need to figure out how to dig properly, and we could really make our lives a lot better. So with that, thanks, brother. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you're doing in the big world that we're all in for other people and their lives. And I know that it's going to be successful.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. And, you know, however I can support you in your mission, you know, we might actually have very similar purposes on what we're trying to achieve and going at it different ways. But I think people need everything that they can get to support them, right? And because you're inundated with so much that tells you you can't, you know what I mean? And you need to surround yourself with people like me and Dave, however you can. And that's the power of the internet. To me, Dave, look, I mean, seriously, Dave, look, where are you at, Dave? Where are you at right now in the world?
I'm retired in Greece.
Right. So Dave is in Greece. I'm all the way over in Minnesota, right? And we know each other pretty well. So, I mean, that's the power of the internet is that's how you change your circle, right? And so that's what I'm saying, Dave, is like change your circle through the internet, right? Start to make that be your light. I've met some amazing people through the Les Brown program.
Yeah, man. This makes me think of a couple of the parents that I counsel, and they can't understand their teens, right? I don't understand why my teen, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But the first thing that I say is, look, your parenting guide is your parents' guide that they gave you, and they got it from their grandparent or your grandparents. And it's just, this guide is dated, right? And we grew up without this. This did not exist. We don't understand how connected our teens are. And our teens' kids or their kids will not understand how people could be racist or how people can't like just embrace each other. They will understand how to be collaborative, because this closes so many gaps. I grew up with, when I entered the Air Force, there were people that said, I never met anybody that was Puerto Rican. Or, dude, so you're black, right? Well, there's a difference between black and Puerto Rican, but sure. Well, but your skin color, whatever. I never had those hangups, right? And now your kids don't understand the opposite. They don't know. Like, I knew people that never knew black people, never saw, in Minnesota.
Hey, I wasn't gonna say anything, okay? I wasn't gonna say anything. I don't want anybody that knows to feel bad, but yeah, I know what you mean.
And teenagers now can't conceive that. Why? We get to do this. We get to do this, and it's effortless. It's not even a thought process for us to be able to go, oh, here's a Zoom, let's talk. Oh,
Right.
let me call and FaceTime real quick. Right? It's not even effort. So that gap has closed. It really has. And people are going to know whether or not you're genuine and whether or not you're full of crap very quickly, because you can research. You can type in Sensei Dave Armstrong and get 10, 15 years of Google stuff. And so if I tell you that I was a ninja in Japan 5 years ago and training the samurai 20 years ago, you're going to find out quickly that that's BS.
Mm,
The end.
mm,
And so it's close. This thing, what you said, man, this thing has closed so many gaps, and it's going to continue to close gaps. Continue.
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And Dave, I mean, like with everything I see right now, technology, the world, the barriers to entry for a lot of financial things has come down.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the people that realize this, right? Like 2021, I would say when this year ends, you're probably going to come out with more millionaires and billionaires than in history.
You already
Easily,
have.
right?
You already
And
have.
it's
No,
going to continue.
already have. You know this. There's more millionaires and billionaires today than there ever was in the history of money. Okay, and it's only going to get better. It's not easy, right? But it's
No, wait, Dave, I'm
accessible.
just saying for this, Dave, wait, I'm just saying for this 1 year. Like, if you just say like how many
You
millionaires
think
come out
so?
of a year,
Yeah.
I'm saying this year
I
in
agree.
2021.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. But
yeah,
I totally know what you're saying. Yeah, I agree with that too.
I agree.
But I'm just saying, Dave, and the sooner people kind of like that's why you got to find out what you want to do. Like there's so many things and people coming to me and saying, hey, Andrew, we do this, you can make money here, you can make money there, right? But no, I'm like, no, this is what is gonna fulfill me. Like this is what I'm focused on. And you got to have that laser focus. Oh shoot, Dave, I do have to go
Yeah,
soon.
you got to go.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Good, brother.
man, great talking to you.
All right. Ditto. We'll talk later.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure. Be good.